They say to the victor go the spoils, right? Well, seems like spoils describes our political understanding. It seems like when our side wins, we gloat. When our side loses, we want to rub it in, we want to rebel and claim the world is over. We'll touch on that and more. You're watching BS3 presents the Morning Shift with Cole Johnson, the Roku TV via BS3, BS3TVLive.com, and the BS3 Morning Shift Cole Johnson YouTube channel. You are listening to us live on the Real Wise Radio Network, and it starts right now. Welcome to the December 16th edition of BS3 Presents the Morning Shift for Cole Johnson. I am, well, as you can see in the name on the lower third, I am Cole Johnson. And for this episode, what's on tap for today? Well, we touched on the centerpiece. Why is it that we want to be so divided when it comes to politics, and why are we driven to hate? I'll give you a few examples of such in the cover story, or might be something different. Bills, more importantly, medical bills. Why is it that we as a country actually pay the most in the entire world when it comes to medical bills? That is our program Spotlight segment, and in lighting the way. Well, what does God actually consider when we want to clash? Yeah. When we're about division, what does God say? What does he like or dislike about wanton division? I think that's the best way to put it. That is on tap for later. But for now, I think it's time that we start you up. And here's what's going on in the world today. A wonderful world that it is. South Korean President Yoon Suk Yeol vowed on Saturday to fight for his political future as he was impeached a second time, or by a second vote, I should say, by the opposition-led parliament over his short-lived attempt to impose martial law onto South Korea. That move shocked the whole nation. The Constitutional Court will decide whether to remove Yoon sometime in the next 6 months. If he is removed from office, a snap election will be called. Now, in his stead will be Prime Minister Hak Duk-soo, who was appointed by Yoon. He became acting president while Yoon remains in office, but with his presidential powers being suspended halfway through his 5-year term, but Han promises his utmost efforts to ensure stability after Yoon's impeachment. Rough way to end the year. Former House Speaker and Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi is in the hospital after sustaining an injury during travel in Luxembourg, according to a spokesperson for office. Quote, Speaker Emerita Pelosi is currently receiving excellent treatment from doctors and medical professionals. She continues to work and regrets that she is unable to attend the remainder of the CODEL or CODEL engagements to honor the courage of our service members during one of the greatest acts of American heroism in our country. Close quote. And that came from Ian Krager, a spokesman for the California Democratic lawmaker, in a statement. Pelosi has been traveling and had been traveling with a congressional delegation abroad on a trip marking the 80th anniversary of the Battle of the Bulge. Saturday Night Live has plenty to say about Luigi Mangione. The sketch show's latest episode was hosted by Chris Rock, who, in his monologue, addressed the arrest of the man accused of killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. In his own words, he joked, quote, "Everybody's fixated on how good looking this guy looks. If he looked like Jonah Hill, no one would care. They had given him the chair already. He'd be dead." Close quote. Rock expressed sympathy for Thompson's family, while at the same time building up a punchline, saying, quote, "Now he killed him," talking about Mangione, "he killed a man with a family, a man with kids. I have condolences for the healthcare CEO. I mean, this is a real person, but sometimes drug dealers get shot. I mean, you seen The Wire, right?" Close quote. Jokes made on the previous week's episode about Thompson's death fell flat with some viewers who called them tasteless on social media platforms such as X. In an NBC interview published on Friday, the Alabama woman, represented by the Houston-based lawyer Tony Busby, recanted certain details of her claims levied at Sean Carter and Sean Combs, otherwise known as Jay-Z and Diddy, respectively. Her lawsuit was filed as Jane Doe. Now, Jay-Z pushed back on Saturday, saying, quote, "True justice is coming," close quote, in a statement shared by his reps with USA Today. Now, she told the news organization, quote, "I've made some mistakes," close quote, in her recollection of the night when she says that the music mogul duo raped her at an MTV Video Music Awards party when she was 13 years old back in September of 2000. Now, she told ABC that she stands by her allegations. However, the accuser's father pushed back on some of her earlier claims that he picked her up from the party. The woman also said that she talked with an unnamed celebrity at the after party, but that celebrity says they were not in New York at the time of the allegations, according to NBC, and photos that showed Jay-Z and Diddy at different locations than the one laid out in her claims. Oops. Jamie Foxx's birthday dinner took a surprising turn on Friday the 13th. The actor was hit in the face by a glass during physical altercation at his 57th birthday dinner on Friday night at celebrity hotspot Mr. Chow in Beverly Hills, according to his reps. A rep Fox told USA Today, quote, "Jamie Foxx was at his birthday dinner when someone from another table threw a glass that hit him in the mouth. He had to get stitches and is recovering," close quote. The Beverly Hills Police Department says it responded to reported possible assault with a deadly weapon at Mr. Chow Friday night, but the police said that the assault was, quote, "unfounded," close quote, and instead, quote, "involved a physical altercation between parties," close quote. Ouch. WNBA Rookie of the Year, Caitlin Clark, has yet another major honor to add to her resume. Time Magazine's Athlete of the Year for 2024. With the signature long-range three-point shots and her amazing passing skills, the number one overall pick in the 2024 WNBA draft led the Indiana Fever to their first playoff berth in 8 years, while at the same time ushering a new level of exposure and fandom for the league. All this after leading the University of Iowa to a 34-5 record and the championship game of the women's NCAA tournament while breaking the all-time Division I career scoring record. The announcement was made Tuesday on NBC's Today Show and in an accompanying article of the magazine. The federal government is deploying, quote, "deploying additional resources," close quote, to address the aerial drones that have prompted concern among East Coast residents, many in New Jersey, in recent weeks. This is coming from Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas on Sunday. He went on to say on ABC News, quote, "This week, quote, there's no question that people are seeing drones. I want to assure the American public that we in the federal government have deployed additional resources, personnel, technology to assist the New Jersey State Police in addressing the drone sightings," close quote. Last week, the White House National Security Communications Advisor John Kirby said that the drone sightings appeared to be piloted aircraft, adding that there was no evidence of the sightings, quote, posing a national security or public safety threat or have a foreign nexus, close quote. In sports, Travis Hunter is now the latest Heisman Trophy recipient. He received the award at the famous Downtown Athletic Club in New York. It was the closest vote since Mark Ingram won it back in 2009. On the gridiron Sunday, the Eagles beat the Steelers 27-13. However, both teams clinched playoff berths that very day. Now, the Packers, they beat the Seahawks 30-13 in Seattle. They're inching closer to a playoff berth themselves, but they helped out their divisional rival Vikings to clinch a playoff berth. They play the Bears on at home tonight, trying to catch the Lions, who lead the NFC North. And the Texans dealt a blow, a big one, I may add, to the Dolphins' playoff chances with a 20-12 victory. And aided by the Broncos' 31-13 victory against the Colts in Denver, the Texans clinched the AFC South for the second consecutive year. Congratulations to the Texans and those who clinched the playoff berths, being the Vikings, the Steelers, and the Eagles. Well, that should look on sports, and you've now been properly started up. Coming up later, division in politics. Why are we drawn to it? And enlighten the way, why is division something that God even has to address? But coming up next, you know that America pays the most in terms of medical bills and medical care. Why is that? I'll give you a few reasons as to why that is. You're watching BS3 presents the morning shift for Cole Johnson on Roku TV via BS3, BS3TVLive.com, and the BS3 morning shift Cole Johnson YouTube channel. And you're listening to it on the Real Wise Radio Network. It is good to be amongst you all, shifters. Cole Johnson here. I am loving, and I do mean loving, the fact that I get a chance to be in front of you. Now, if you want me to do more than just be someone that you listen to, you want to participate and actually talk, have something to say, simple question to be answered. All you have to do is go into the BS3 Morning Shift Cole Johnson YouTube channel. That's the BS3 Morning Shift Cole Johnson YouTube channel, where BS3 presents the Morning Shift with Cole Johnson comes to you live. And your voice matters. Your voice always matters. Well, speaking of voices that always matter, since we've had to deal with an unfortunate death due to healthcare concerns, a question, I guess, had to be begged to be answered. Why is it that healthcare is so expensive? That's a wonderful question to ask. And why is it the case with the United States? Well, in today's program Spotlight, we will shine the spotlight on the the medical system in the United States and why it is the most expensive in the world. Ooh. I actually would like to know that myself. Why it's the most expensive in the world? Well, Americans spend far more on healthcare than anywhere else in the world, but we have the lowest life expectancy along with that. Why is that? A lot of it can be explained by the unique aspects of our healthcare system. I mean, among other things, we reward doctors more for medical procedures than for keeping people healthy. We keep costs hidden from customers, and we spend money on tasks that have nothing to do with making patients better. Harvard University's economist David Cutler says it this way, quote, "We spend on administrative costs more than we do caring for heart disease and caring for cancer. It's just an absurd amount. Close quote. Yes, it is, sir. It most certainly is. The nation's rising health bill affects just about everyone. The amount of working age Americans spent on health insurance through the payroll deductions has jumped nearly 3 times faster than wages over the last 2 dozen years. And health bills are the leading cause of personal bankruptcy. And for medical bills, they are accounted for half, more than half, I should say, of all debt on consumers' credit records back in 2022, according to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Now, public anger over high costs and poor results have been squarely focused on health insurance industries in the wake of the assassination earlier this month of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, she said that while violence is never the answer, the public's frustration should serve as a warning for the healthcare industry. And in the Huffington Post interview last week, she cited the quote visceral response, close quote, from people who feel quote cheated, ripped off, and threatened by the vile practices of their insurance companies, close quote. But health economists say that the entire healthcare system, just not insurers, deserves scrutiny for runaway medical bills. Now, health insurance companies took in $25 billion of profit last year, while hospitals collected an eye-popping $90 billion. And this comes from Rice University economist Vivian Ho. Now, she went on to say, quote, it's become quite clear how angry the public is with care costs. I'm glad people are voicing their anger against insurers, but they should be directing equal anger toward hospitals, particularly since so many of them are nonprofit, close quote. Now, here are 7 of those reasons why America's health costs are so much higher than everyone else's without showing better results. Number 1, U.S. hospitals have more specialists than they do medical facilities and in other nations. Having access to 24/7 specialty care, particularly for hospitals in major metro areas, it drives up the costs, says Michael Chernew, a healthcare policy professor at Harvard Medical School. And he says that's leading to a lack of price limits. Patients have more elbow room and privacy here. U.S. hospitals typically have either 1 or 2 patients per room, unlike facilities abroad that tend to have open wards with rows of beds, Chernew says. I'm sorry. He says the differences in labor markets and regulatory requirements also can impact on costs. Now, of the $4.5 trillion spent on health care back in 2022, hospitals collected 30% of that total while spending it, according to data from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Doctors ranked second at 20%. Prescription drugs accounted for 9%, in health insurance, both private health insurance and government programs such as Medicare and Medicaid, they collect 7% of that administrative cost. Now, most hospitals in the U.S. are nonprofit, and they get federal, state, and local tax breaks. Now, these nonprofits are expected to provide free or reduced costs care to low-income patients, as well as other community benefits. Federal law requires hospitals to access and stabilize every patient who seek such care in emergency rooms, even if they can't pay for the bill. But research suggests that many hospitals don't live up to their charity care and other community benefit obligations. Now, here's reason number 2. Hospitals and doctors get paid for services, but they don't get paid for the outcomes. Now, doctors, hospitals, and other providers are paid based on the number of tests and procedures that they order, not necessarily whether they make patients better. The insurer pays the doctor, hospital, or lab based on negotiated in-network rates between the 2 parties. Now, critics of this fee-for-service payment method says it rewards quantity over quality, and healthcare providers who order more tests or procedures get more lucrative payments, whether the patient improves or not. U.S. Congressman Vern Buchanan of Florida. He says this. He says this during a hearing back in June. "Quote: This is not the way healthcare should be delivered to our country." Close quote. After the Affordable Care Act passed in 2010, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services funded small programs that encourage hospitals and other health providers to emphasize value over volume. Hmm. Reason number three. Now, specialists get paid much more and they want to keep it that way. Now, you got doctors who provide specialty care, like cardiologists or cancer doctors. Well, they get paid much higher payments from Medicare and private insurers than primary care doctors do. Some see that as a system that rewards doctors who specialize in caring for patients with complex medical conditions while skimping on pay for primary care doctors who try to prevent or limit disease. Yeah, boy, such a tangle web we weave. Under the current medical system, doctors chosen by the American Medical Association recommend how much Medicare should pay doctors for specific services. Now, some have compared the idea of doctors setting their own pay scale to the proverbial fox guarding the henhouse. Now, if such an overhaul resulted in more lucrative payment from primary care doctors who emphasize preventive care, it could make people healthier and reduce costly spending. Hmm, what a novel concept. It also could reduce costly spending on specialists as well. And that's actually said by Vivian Ho. Reason number four: administrative costs inflate health spending. Now, one of the biggest sources of wasted medical spending is on administrative costs. Now, although Medicare's official healthcare spending report doesn't calculate how much the nation spends on administrative tasks, Cutler of Harvard, he estimates that up to 25% of medical spending is due to administrative costs. Health insurers often require doctors and hospitals to get authorization before performing procedures and operations, or they mandate, quote, step therapy, close quote, which makes patients try comparable lower cost prescription drugs before coverage for a doctor recommended drug that kicks in. Then these mandates trigger a flurry of communication and tasks for both health insurers and doctors, Cutler says. He goes on to say, quote, the only use of fax machines now are in medical care, close quote. And he says that they often turn to calls and throwback technology in care. Here's one drawback: unscrupulous providers can more easily fraudulently bill the federal health program. Wow. And we get to reason number five: healthcare pricing. Well, we don't know it. Patients often have no idea as to how much a test or a procedure will cost before they go to a clinic or a hospital. Healthcare prices are hidden from the public, and because of that, consumers with health insurance often must pick up a portion of their bill. Healthcare prices do matter. For example, an MRI can cost $300 or $3,000 depending on where you get it. A colonoscopy can run you $1,000 or $10,000. Economists cite these examples of wide-ranging healthcare prices and request that Congress pass a Healthcare Price Transparency Act 2.0, which would help hospitals and healthcare providers to disclose their prices. However, the consumer nonprofit Patients' Right Advocate said in a November report that just 21% of hospitals fully comply with the existing federal price transparency rule, and that's actually down from 35% as of February. Here's reason number six: Americans pay far more for prescription drugs than people in other wealthy nations. There are no price limits on prescription drugs, and Americans pay more for these life-saving medications than residents of other wealthy nations. U.S. prescription drug prices run more than 2.5 times more than those in 32 of those comparable countries, according to a 2023 HHS report. In one study of 224 cancer drugs approved by the Food and Drug Administration for 2015 to 2020, the median price for a patient was at $196,000 per year. Now, lawmakers have scrutinized the prices of weight loss drugs such as Ozempic and Wegovy. Now, during a September hearing, Senator Bernie Sanders grilled Novo Nordisk's top executive over why the U.S. residents pay so much for these medications than people in other countries do. Although the amount consumers pay at the pharmacy is often discounted, Novo Nordisk charged $969 a month for Ozempic in the U.S., while that same drug costs only $155 in Canada, $122 in Denmark, and $59 in Germany, according to a document submitted by Sanders. And then we get to number 7, private equity. Wall Street investors who control private equity firms have taken over hospitals and large doctor practices with the primary goal of making it a profit. The role of these private equity investors has drawn increased scrutiny from government regulators and elected officials. Private equity investors have also targeted specialty practices in certain states and metro regions. Just last year, the Federal Trade Commission sued the U.S. anesthesia partners over its serial acquisition of practices in Texas, alleging that these deals violated antitrust laws and inflated prices for patients. The federal agency also sued private equity investor Welsh Carson that funded these deals, known as, quote, roll-ups, close quote. But a federal judge in Texas dismissed Welsh Carson from the case. Now, the tragic shooting of Brian Thompson has highlighted the distinctive aspects of the nation's healthcare system. Now, Andrew Whitty, the CEO of United Health Group, the parent company of United Healthcare, said in an op-ed on Friday that the slaying of Thompson was, quote, unconscionable, close quote, but he acknowledged the flaws that so many Americans see in their medical care, saying, quote, we know the health system does not work as well as it should, and we understand people's frustrations with it, close quote. Well, there's no end in sight, unfortunately, because the the cost is going to come downhill and the customer is going to receive the benefit of it until a sweeping change happens. And that concludes today's program Spotlight. Now, coming up in a moment, we're going to touch on division. Why do we want to be so divisive? We hear that Donald Trump's coming to office, but we want to pitch a fit. Why? You're watching BS3 Presents the Morning Shift for Cole Johnson on Roku TV via BS3, BS3TVLive.com, and the BS3 Morning Shift Cole Johnson YouTube channel. You're listening to it on Real Wise Radio. And welcome back to BS3 Presents the Morning Shift for Cole Johnson. Glad that you are here. And my feeling has always been and it always will be you. That's right, you, Shifter. Your voice is what matters. And we will definitely touch on your voice mattering. And there will be a comment that is in the section that's where Shift Nation resides. I'll get to it after this next segment because I have some things to get off my chest. Now, normally this would be a time where I would just wax poetic on things in terms of how the country is rolling and how it's going. But I'm not going to wax poetic. I'm just going to come straight out and be blunt. I think we just have a love affair with wanting to be divisive and wanting to just throw and sow hate in politics. I don't understand why that's the case. And I say it with all honesty because we have a system where we elect people and it may be the person you voted for, it may be the person you didn't vote for. However, we believe that no matter who wins, we all should win because we all reside in what we consider to be the best country in the world. But for the last at least 15 years, People will probably say 8, but I go further back. There has been this divide where we just want to hate if we see the other side, and I put that in quotes, represent something that we don't. And here's the kicker. We tune out the other side. We don't want to listen to what they have to say, and all we have to see is a symbol. Like if we see the Obama hope poster, or if we see a person who's MAGA who wears a "Make America Great Again" hat. We see these things and we automatically are like, well, we don't want to talk to the other side. Forget it. And that shouldn't be how we are. Now, look, to the victor go the spoils. I mean, that's just how it rolls. Uh, but we shouldn't lose it to the point where we feel as though we have to be rah, 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 and we hate everything and we hate everyone who doesn't believe what I believe. That's the wrong course to take. Take, for instance, one Angela Rye. I mean, so many of you know that she was a CNN contributor and she studied law and is a civil rights activist ish. She also has a podcast called Native Land Pod. She shares that platform with former Tallahassee Mayor Andrew Gillum and former MSNBC anchor Tiffany Cross. Now, the Thursday after the election, she with tears said, quote, "I hate half of the country," close quote. I hate half of the country. How can you hate half of the country when you're not listening to half of them? That is the sticking point for me. You got to hear half of the country in order to decipher if you like or dislike them. But if you're going to go on, well, this personality I don't like, well, what good are you? What good are you to decipher if you're good for people who follow your voice or follow your vision or not? Because if you're going to emotionally react and not mentally take an understanding of, oh, wait a minute. So the Republicans in the presidential election, they actually listened to the people, but the Democrats did not. That's a problem. If you don't even do that, you don't even take a pulse, an account of who you are. What is your point? I hate half the country. I hate half the people who voted for Trump. Well, fine. You can go and hate half of them, but that means you become a non-factor. And that is something you should not ever be, especially in politics. Speaking of which, Joy Reid. Now, you may know her as one of the key anchors in MSNBC. She hosts a show called The Readout. And she seems to want to liken the president-elect to fascist leaders of the past. And all because President-elect Donald Trump joked, quote, "I'm going to be dictator on day one," close quote. And he said it in a joking manner, meaning, look, you all claim that I want to be a dictator, but no, he doesn't want to be a dictator. He just wants what's best for the American people. You don't believe that? Clean out your ears and listen. But Joy decides to not listen. Oh, how much does she decide not to listen? Here's what. Here's how. Quote, "It's not a ringing endorsement saying that Trump is the 2024 Time Person of the Year. And let's remember who else has been given this title in years past of the same category. Adolf Hitler in 1938, Joseph Stalin in 1939 and 1942, Ayatollah Khomeini in 1979, and Vladimir Putin in 2007. In fact, Stalin won the honor twice, just like Trump," close quote. So did Obama. He won the honor twice. So did Joe Biden. He won the honor once. So did Kamala Harris. They shared 2020. So what's your point, Joy? I mean, I don't understand how you want to just simply sow this seed of discontent and you say fascist, 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 and you don't want to listen. Does this mean that we have to basically eschew uh, the president elect's past? No. But does it mean that basically how you have painted him is the exact picture of the guy? No, it's not. It's not. And for you to not want to even think about researching or actually being observant and objective, shame on you. And that takes me to Sunny Hostin, who right now is probably the most biased human being that is on TV at the moment. Days after the election, she just kept saying, well, black men who voted for Trump and Latino men who voted for Trump, well, it means that they want sexist and they have sexist and misogynistic and racist tendencies. No, we don't. We have logic. You, on the other hand, even in front of a national TV camera, seem to not have that type of logic because you got to have ABC News legal team step in on your half, intercede, and have you do the most entertaining thing that's on TV right now. You having to read legal notes because you put your foot in your mouth so many different times. Matt Getz is one of them. Peter Hestek is another. Of course, Donald Trump is one because, well, heck, all of them you have said at one time, quote, they have raped people, close quote. But you've had to read legal notes saying opposite because they've denied the allegations and it hasn't been proven in a court of law they have. So when you can get out from your ivory tower and you can actually look at ground level at the people who supposedly you say the Democratic Party represents, then you might get a better perspective. Until then, I don't think so. I think you're going to have this understanding of, well, if you vote Republican, then that means you're a racist, you're misogynistic, and you're sexist. No, unfortunately, it just means that you are. Because your take basically is saying that's what we are. And that's embarrassing. And speaking of ABC News, they had to learn the bright idea of the lesson of you can't put your foot in your mouth because you'll pay the price for it. George Stephanopoulos, prime example, one of the big anchors on ABC, fighting with South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace over Donald Trump and kept saying, quote, that he raped, close quote, people when the Congresswoman kept saying it hasn't been proven in the court of law. He has been. He hasn't been criminally brought up on those charges. And the civil case was for sexual abuse, not for rape. Speaking of that suit, E. Jean Carroll, who got awarded $83 million earlier this year, congratulations to you, is the proud recipient of such a verdict. But the takes that she has, it just makes me laugh. I mean, she got interviewed 5.5 years ago, actually, on Anderson Cooper on CNN. And when he was trying to get an understanding as to what she really thinks about the sexual assault, she tried not to say rape, but she just kept tiptoeing and going around the side of it. She actually was practicing things that Kamala Harris would do, just sidestep the issue and not fully go into it. Well, the take that just made me say I can't really take her serious at all anymore or any longer or period was when she said, quote, I think most people think of rape as being sexy, close quote. Wait, hold on. Rape is never, ever sexy. I don't care who you are. It's not a sexy thing. It is a power play. It's a violent act to show power from one person to another. I can think of many things that is sexy. RAPE, the last thing that I would ever think of when it comes to sexy. Goodness gracious. I mean, just the logic that people seem to not practice is ridiculous. And it's all because people have this scared thought that the sky is falling. Oh no. Oh no. That fascist man is going to reclaim the White House. He's going to tear down the whole country. Oh no. Please. Please think, if he were to actually do that, do you think you would have many people? Do you think he would have 75 million people vote for him if they actually thought he was good? He would tear down the country? No, he wants the country to be better. Now, do I agree with everything that he's about? No. But guess what? I don't agree with anybody 100% of the time. Heck, I only agree with myself 100% of the time. So what makes me think that I will agree with him 100% of the time? It's time we just stop with the hate. There isn't anything to hate about any side of the political spectrum. Either you're conservative or you're liberal, or you may be moderate. But whatever it is, whatever you personally think, that is what's okay, period. I don't care who you are, I don't care what you are. It doesn't matter the gender, doesn't matter the culture, doesn't matter the religious practice you have. It doesn't matter the socioeconomic background you may have. Your personal choice as to who should run the country should not engender hate. I don't care who you are. It shouldn't engender hate at all. And if you feel as though you should hate the other side because they disagree with your political view, then that's something that's problematic with you, not them. So it's time that you stop with the hate and you start thinking critically. Seriously. Because it's getting out of hand. It's getting ridiculous. Coming up next, we'll talk about the Christian understanding of division, what it does, and why we shouldn't even practice division. We seem to be at home with it here in this country when it comes to politics. You're watching BS3 Presents the Morning Shift with Cole Johnson, Roku TV via BS3, BS3TVLive.com, and the BS3 Morning Shift Cole Johnson YouTube channel. And you're listening to it on Real Wise Radio as well. Back at it one more time. This is BS3 Presents the Morning Shift with Cole Johnson. Glad that you're here. And Shifter, I do this for you. I do this for you. And Shift Nation, this is why I like to actually talk about, just have these conversations. New Shifter, Matt Yeager, he says, look, only people driven by hatred are the people who voted for, quote, the machine, close quote. Thankfully, they lost. Yeah. Now, some may disagree with that take, but it's just how it goes. That's just how it goes. Bochismo. Sorry, Bochismo. I'm sorry. He says, do you want to understand Trump and conservatives? Look at the story of Queen Boudica, heroine of Great Britain. Sometimes the government goes too far and the hatred is naturally expected recoil. Yeah, I get that. I get exactly why you say that. And I'm glad you bring that up. It's a natural propensity to hate something, but it also is damaging to you and to the society at large when you keep being in that hatred. You can't sustain it. It won't last, and it will tire you out, and it will tire society out to the point where you don't even want to entertain anything that is hateful. And so that's when you have to do the self reflections and say, okay, what do I personally want? And I want to represent that instead of I'm hating the fact that this isn't what I want. And you just go in on that. That's problematic. And unfortunately, with this country, we seem to want that problematic relationship with one another when it comes to politics. But I'm not one that just wants to politically stay in that realm. I actually want to dive deeper and get a better and a bigger understanding as to what it is we're about. So I tend to want to dig spiritually, and Christianity for me is the spiritual dig for me. So why is it that we want to be so divisive and when it comes to politics or anything in life? Well, welcome to Lighting the Way. Father God, in the name of Jesus, I thank you so much for being in the midst. Your word says that when two or three are gathered together in the midst, you will be here. So thank you for being in the midst and being in the mix. I love you, Lord. I love everything that you're about. I love everything that you are. And I love the fact that you loved me first. And love the fact you loved everybody that you created first. So, with this following message, divorce my emotions, my ego, and my thoughts. May I be a channel and a lighthouse of your word. May you pour it down to me so I can spray it to all the shifters. And may my countenance be measured and be full of joy. Your word says that your joy is my strength. May I deliver your message in joy. Even though we're talking about division, may it be delivered in joy. And may the words of my mouth, the meditation of my heart be always acceptable in your sight, Lord. You're my rock, my strength, and my redeemer. In Jesus' name, amen. So I just got finished talking about division and how we seem to embrace it when it comes to politics. And that has been something that has bothered me for so long. And I said, all right, I think it's time that it stops bothering me and that I actually come to terms with it. And so I said, all right, Jesus, division. Bottom line it for me. How should we go against it? Because I know you don't want division. I know you want togetherness, and I know you want unity. So what should my position be? What should anybody's position be? And so he says, yeah, why don't you go to the book of Romans? I'm like, okay. So I did. 16th chapter, starting in the 17th verse. 17th and 18th verse, it says, I appeal to you, brothers and sisters, to watch out for those who cause divisions and create obstacles contrary to the doctrine that you have been taught. Avoid them. For such persons do not serve our Lord Christ, but their own appetites. And by smooth talk and flattery, they deceive the hearts of the naive. Once again, from Romans chapter 16, verses 17 and 18. I appeal to you, brothers and sisters, to watch out for those who cause divisions and create obstacles contrary to the doctrine that you have been taught. Avoid them. For such persons do not serve our Lord Christ, but their own appetites. And by smooth talk and flattery, they deceive the hearts of the naive. Wow. I just don't know how we can get past this and not be rational. I think that's the stumbling block for me. And so, Lord, please allow that stumbling block to be non-existent. So the first question I asked Jesus, I said, well, what does serving our own appetites look like? Well, it looks like, he said to me, think about how you are for Christmas when you ask for gifts. I know this is my birthday and all, but you do receive gifts because part of my birthday present is that you get blessed. So think about you being as a child and you ask for gifts and you begged and you begged and you begged and you begged. And when you got what you wanted, the next year you didn't. Well, how did you feel that year you didn't get what you begged for Christmas? So well, I felt sour mouth, Lord. He says, yeah, well, that is what serving your own appetite is. And in an more adult fashion, it's wanting to have your way all the time and bullying your way to having your way all the time. Uh, Sometimes lying to get your way. Sometimes just saying things to get under people's skin so that you can just assert your authority simply because you can. Those are different ways that people can serve their own appetites. And because of that, it damages other people. And because it damages other people, it means that you don't profit from it. That means that you're sowing that division and you're going to be divided within yourself because you're not going to like being that root of division. So why is selfishness not serving the Lord? That's an easy answer. And I had to align with God when I came with the answer. I said, it's thinking that I'm God and you're not. And the Lord said, that's exactly right. And there's times we want to play like we are God, that we are our own God, and then of course we've heard from atheists and agnostics, well, there isn't God. Well, that's a lie. There is a God. But we want to play God. And so when we play God, that means we're being selfish. And when we're being selfish, it means, well, we don't have time for others. We don't have time for God. We don't have time to be charitable. We don't have time to be philanthropic. We only have time to feed our own ego and make ourselves feel good. And when we do that, you get around other people who already have a curmudgeon type of understanding about life, and your selfishness will be food for them to say, well, see, you see how selfish that is? That's how the world is. And I can't stand them. And I can't stand the world because of that person right there. Selfish. And because you don't have the compunction to serve the Lord, you put forth that fruit. You put forth that root again of division. Now, how can we avoid the divisions which create obstacles contrary to the doctrine? And the doctrine basically is such things as like fruit of the Spirit, the 10 Commandments, and that, just to be in short and long, the Bible itself. Well, we can avoid the divisions by learning that the Lord himself said in the same book, just a few chapters before, where he says, well, you can't overcome hate with hate. You can't do that. There's no way you can do that. You can only overcome hate with love. And so love means you have to step out. You have to be more than about yourself. You have to be about others. And then when you step out in love, you step out in faith and in love, there's no way that you can be divisive. Now, you can't help others who accept you or look at you or receive you. That's on them. But for you, you don't feed into the division by being divisive. You feed into the division by saying, no, I'm breaking the chain of division because I don't believe in division. I believe in unity because I believe in a God that believes in unity. All colors, all races, all genders, all, all both genders, all nationalities. We are all one, and we have to fight to be one. And we can't do it simply because one person's Democrat, one person's Republican. No, we have to do it because we are on this earth, and we're supposed to love and serve one another. That's what God told us we're supposed to do. So, what does it profit any of us to hate on other individuals? There's scripture that says, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? We aren't supposed to be about the world and not be about one another. That's where we lose focus. That's where we lose the grounding. And that's when we lose the battle altogether. Because we're not meant to battle that way. We're not meant to battle in hate. We're meant to battle in and with love. All right, and before we do go, I just have to go back to Shift Nation real fast. Dante, what's up, my man? He says, what's up, bro? Everything is good on this planet, my brother. How about you? I hope everything's good with you. Well, I know everything's good with you with your Eagles. I know that already. But I'm glad to see you. Glad to see you, my man. Well, that does it for this episode of The Morning Shift. I'm glad that you were here. And for those from all of us here at BS3 Network, for Community Media Incorporated, for The Morning Shift, and for myself, and even for Real Wise Network, I am Cole Johnson here to say the following in parting, as I always do. If you lack commitment, you'll never start. If you lack consistency, you'll never finish. And if you lack love, I guarantee you, my shifter, you most certainly will never, ever, ever conquer. Now go out into the world, preach the gospel to the ends of the earth, because you are a blessing. And how do I know this? Because you're a blessing to me. And hopefully I am a blessing to you. So go out and have a great rest of your day. And when we come back in again tomorrow, we're going to do it the same way with the same fervor. Love is the most revolutionary force on the planet. Exercise that with yourself first, and then exercise it with others. And I guarantee you, you'll see the change that you want. So long.